fly out of Seattle, go on tour, Argentina, Japan, Johannesburg, Cape Town, whatever. I've always akin tour managing to like fishing in Alaska. You sleep maybe 3 hours a night, make a ton of money, you come back, you're a mess, all your friends don't like you, don't want to be around you. You spend all your money and you go back up fishing. That's sort of what tour managing felt like to me towards the end.
Meet Bobby Whittaker, a rock and roll tour manager, a fixer, a doer for the bands like Mudhoney, REM, and the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. If you think of anything in your mind, Bobby's probably been there or done it.
So I love building a team for tour and crew. And, you know, you're all in this together and you're out on the road. And that I learned that in the van with Mudhoney with 4 guys and me. It's hard work. Another thing about me is I'm sort of an empath and I'm also a field sergeant, which is sort of what you saw walking around backstage. That's probably why I was good at my job, but also you're open and exposed and it wears you out because you're receiving and you care. I always kept one toe kind of in nature. And so I come back and I would go to the peninsula. My family has a cabin on the Quinault Indian Reservation on the peninsula.
That family is outdoor famous. Bobby's dad is Jim Whittaker, the first American to climb Mount Everest, the first CEO of REI. Bobby was named after the late Attorney General and brother to President John F. Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy. The outdoors are a part of him.
And I would go out there. I would take all the, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Mudhoney, The Accused, all the freaks would come out there. I just love it and go for walks on the beach and just get back to nature. My father was he's very inspiring, and he got me in touch with nature and I got an appreciation for that. And then I would go on these tours. You come back and you're like, what have I done to make the world a better place or myself a better person? Or, when you've been on the road and you're giving your all to this, these various families that are bands, and you start to realize that those things come to an end and it's not entirely up to you. And you start to kind of go, oh, this isn't that enriching, or I've done this. What the hell am I going to do for an encore? But then it wasn't enough to just go out in nature. It was like, okay, what can I do to give back to the community?
Community, a theme persistent with Bobby, either through creating quasi-families with bands or growing up in a culture of the outdoors. Building community is ever present. And it landed Bobby in a beautiful upper east corner of Washington State called Ferry County.
I always say it's Washington State's Bermuda Triangle because no one knows where it is. It's a very rural area. It's got, huge ponderosa pine that 4 people couldn't put their arms around. Visually, it's almost like the San Juan Islands. You have a lot of grasslands and then trees. You have sort of an arid forest, but then you also have cedars and stuff like that on the north side of the hills.
Bobby had bought property up there. He loved to cross-country ski in the backwoods right off his deck. Being close to nature again, connected to his past and away from the bands, sound checks, and grind of touring, it was healing. But he wanted to do more. He wanted to give back to this new community he joined in Ferry County.
So an article pops in the local newspaper. It's like this tiny 4-page newspaper, which the best part about it was the police blotter. You get to see all your friends in there, see my speeding tickets, stuff like that. And it said the railway was going to be abandoned. I was like, oh my gosh, what an opportunity to make lemonade out of lemons. No one wants their railway to go away. No one wants their industry to go away. And me being an outdoor dork and a bicycle pedestrian advocate, I was like, God, these things are great for these tiny little towns, and we could have a tourist boom here with something that's not a hardcore industry that doesn't hurt the area.
Ferry County had almost 30 miles of pristine nature and waterfront, perfect for a trail along a railroad track that was about to be abandoned. If tracks get abandoned, they often lead to squabbles and conflicts, property right fights down the road, and Bobby knew it.
So I contacted an attorney, Charles Montaigne. He's like the Michael Jordan of rail banking. I got this attorney, and he writes a couple letters. He gets the thing rail banked with the county.
Rail banking is an agreement that gives tax breaks to the railroad companies for the lines and federal dollars to convert the line into public land as part of the Trails Act. And though he didn't have money to build the trail yet, Bobby thought it was important to get people into nature and see the trail's potential for themselves.
I was like, great, we got this line. Now what do you do? And like everyone's like, oh, you got to develop it now. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. Well, we got a bunch of snow, and we got a snowmobile, and we groomed it for cross-country skiing. I said, screw it. We got 8 inches of snow. Let's have a ski day event. We groomed the trail along the Kettle River up to our tunnel, which is like 1.5 miles from north of Curlew. The Kettle River is beautiful. It comes out of BC watershed. And it's a near wilderness experience. There's no road. You're on a rail trail. You can look down in the water, if it's not frozen, and see brown trout. And then you shuffle 1.5 miles and you're still looking at the same river, and you come upon the tunnel. It's just incredible. I'll never forget all the parking lot filling up, and I was like, God, I thought I knew everyone in the stand. There's only 7,000 people in Ferry County. I think 4,300 voters or something like that. I thought I knew everyone, sort of, and I didn't recognize any of the cars in the parking lot. I barely recognized anyone coming out. We had Spokane Park and Rec come up with free skis, poles, and boots for people. And I was walking up to people like, where'd you come from? Like, I thought people came from Omak or Colville or Spokane. And they're like, we live in a republic. And I'd never seen these people before. They're in jeans, skiing the first time in their lives. All of a sudden, we have a 30-mile public park with 15 miles of waterfront that runs through 4 towns, connects 2 school complexes. The Confederated Tribes of the Colville and the Lakes Band in particular walked that trail for 10,000 years. Just there was a brief hiccup when it was privately owned. Now it's public again. Ten minutes later, my phone rang, and it was a commissioner going, what the hell are you doing, kid? You interloper? This isn't Seattle.
Despite Bobby and his allies' best intentions to build and expand a new wilderness trail for Ferry County, not all of the community was as sold on the idea.
The commissioner describes me and the people on the rail trail group as wolves tearing at the flesh of the county like it's a downed deer that's still alive. Once I realized I had a problem on my hands, I just started doubling down on the education piece. Like, the commissioners saw it as an ATV corridor, motorized recreation. They wanted to turn it into an ATV corridor. They're like, we don't need grants. And I'm like, there's millions and millions of dollars available to develop these trails, but it's all attached to non-motorized funds, non-motorized grants, healthy grants, bicycle pedestrian funds, initiatives. And we needed something different for the county, something dynamic.
From his tour manager days, cajoling, convincing, winning, making things better was what Bobby was good at.
Someone came up to me on my board and said, oh, we're in trouble. The rail corridor goes along the lake and, 5.5, 6 miles. I'm like, yeah, it's gorgeous. And they're like, no, man, it goes right through Bobby Weller's yard.
That's Ferry County kingpin and public utilities veteran, Bobby Weller.
And I'm like, what's the problem? He goes, no, you don't understand. The track is between Bobby Weller's house and the water. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to put some crushed rock down. There'll be a couple kids, a bike bell, and it's going to be beautiful. Maybe a horse once in a while. And he goes, no, Bobby Weller doesn't want the trail. She doesn't want the trail. She runs this county. She's the head of the PUD. They call her the Velvet Hammer. She's just like, we're screwed. Never tell a tour manager or manager they can't do something. The second these guys got between me and a community rail trail, I was like, all right, dude, watch this, And so I called Bobby Weller up. And she had heard about me here at the rail trail. And after explaining to her what you get with funding, a beautiful, maintained rail trail with people on bicycles walking, cross-country skiing, versus ATVs in your yard, and no bathrooms, no trailheads, no signage. She hung up the phone and called me back like an hour later and said she wanted to be on the board and she wanted to have the best rural rail trail in Washington State. So Ferry County is incredibly challenged financially. We can barely keep the lights on at the courthouse. We have to rob from the road budget to keep the lights on at the courthouse. We don't have a parks department. We don't have anything. And that's why we cobbled together the citizens group to do all the work and do the heavy lifting and develop the trail. And so we had to do it in phases. First phase was we won a grant for planning from the National Parks, Rivers, and Trails Assistance Program. And that helped us get our plan together to apply for construction grants, basically. We were going to Olympia and sleeping in our cars to present our grants before these boards against people like Seattle that have, millions and millions of dollars of park budgets and staff and all this stuff. And then, okay, up next is Ferry County. And we're trying to roll off the dog hair of our clothes and go up there and it's pretty charming, but we're up against pros and people that are paid to give these presentations. So we did really well. We had member donations, a lot of local small donations. We had donations from Kinross Gold Mine. We got donations from Boise Cascade, Fog and Lumber. I mean, everyone came to this party. I tapped some of my rock star friends and they did it started with REM signed the guitars. And then I got a Pearl Jam signed guitar. Vetter signed a ukulele that we auctioned off and got $17,000 for. Those guys are so incredible and talk about giving back to the community. It's incredible what those guys do. The turning point for us was the commissioners kept saying, no, that's not the Ferry County way. We're not going to do that here. And we forced it to a vote. We got it on the ballot. And they lost by a supermajority. We won by 61% for non-motorized. I think if we grow properly, we can bring more recreation to the area, more than beyond the rail trail. Also work together with the community and timber industry and environmentalists and get some roadless areas designated and permanently protected. Right now it doesn't have those protections, so I've been working with a bunch of people on the planning process for the Colville National Forest. I'm part of a group that is called the Northeast Washington Forestry Coalition. I'm advocating for more protection for the Colville, which takes the form of wilderness or backcountry, and that also includes areas for motorized rec and timber harvest. Through this collaboration, the Colville just set the record for board feet coming out of a national forest in the United States. Our forest, Northeast Washington, a forest barely anyone's ever heard of. And that's by the environmentalists and the timber industry working together and signing off on these timber sales and doing it right and being sensitive to it. And so for me, that's pretty exciting.
There are more close votes, more dust-ups with commissioners, more convincing to do, but ultimately, the rail trail survives, and it's thriving. And Bobby hasn't stopped. He got more grants. He's trying to build a skate park nearby. Building community for Bobby continues. To donate to the rail trails, go to ferrycountyrailtrail.com. From Ruinous Media, this is Whittaker.